I mean, woke is sort of the idea that um, I. This is going to be one of those moments that goes viral. I mean, woke is something that's very hard to define, and we've spent.
Thank you for watching Power to the Pod, where we are committed to an intellectual integrity and a moral honesty. I'm your host, Superior, and once again, thanks for watching. Now, in this video, I want to talk about why nobody has a definition on words that they decide to use out of their face. You know what I'm saying? Like I've at least to my understanding, like when you're trying to advocate for something, especially when it's something that's involving, you know, the entirety of Americans, you know what I'm saying? If it's a big issue and you're writing books on the situation, you're doing podcast interviews, you're trying to reach as many people as possible because it's urgent. It's important to you. You are now aware of something, and now you feel like you need to stand up and say something about it. But if you don't know what you're talking about, if you don't even know the basic bare minimum of information that your rallying cry is revolved around, it's a little suspect. I'm not going to lie. You know what I'm saying? Like if someone asked me, you know, what is it to be superior? And it's something that I'm advocating for, and I can't even give you a definition of that. It's a little suspect. So we're going to watch this interview, and I'm pretty sure you guys already watched it. I was a little behind because, you know, YouTube things and stuff like that, but it's still a classic. This is still a prime example of most Republicans have no idea what they're fighting for. They're just fighting just to fight because it's cute. It's what gets them attention. It's what gets them votes. They don't care. They don't do no really groundwork educating themselves when it comes to what they're fighting for. So this is Briahna Joy, and she's having a conversation with some, you know, Republican activists, and she's talking about being woke and, you know, how wokeness is killing kids, how it's destroying families, destroying communities all across America and eventually the world. And then Briahna just asked her one simple question, and she fumbled it like Tony Romo on the 1 yard line. Just fumbled. So let's go ahead and take a watch, and let's have that conversation.
Hope that, you know, parents of all political stripes will pick up the book. This is sort of a woke reimagining that is very, very, very far left. Only 7% of Americans consider themselves very liberal, and probably fewer of them consider themselves to be woke. And so, you know, when we talk about traditional,
what does that mean to you? Would you mind defining woke? Because it's come up a couple times, and I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
I'm not going to laugh.
So, I mean, woke is sort of the idea that this is going to be one of those moments that goes viral. I mean, woke is something that's very hard to define, and we've spent an entire chapter defining it. It is sort of the understanding that we need to totally reimagine and redo society in order to create hierarchies of oppression. Sorry, it's hard to explain in a 15-second soundbite.
Yeah, look, I
mean, it's one of those things
Okay. First off, she had more than 15 seconds. Okay, I have no idea where she came up with this. You know, I can't come up with this, you know, this 4-dimensional, really diverse and complicated definition of what I'm fighting for. She had way more than 15 seconds. And this guy right there saved her. And even his definition is like some sort of like lukewarm, not really a definition, but it kind of fits their narrative and their agenda, but it saves her. That's all that matters. His definition was way better than hers, and he saved her. I wish Briahna would have just been a little bit more pressing on this, because if you can't define it, in at least as simple terms as possible, then maybe you need to go back to the drawing board and figure some things out. I know everything can't be as easily explained, like, when you're, teaching, ABCs to a child. But in some way, if you can't have that conversation, you can't re-deliver what you're trying to get your point across, then maybe you need to figure some things out. But let's hear his definition of being woke, and let's see if it meets the mark.
Everybody is weighing in weighing against wokeness. We do some of it on this show as well. It's definitely something, you know what it is when you see it, but
is it wrong?
Yeah. It is.
Will you define wokeness then?
I would say it's the tendency to punish people formally or often informally for expressing ideas using language specifically that is very new, that no one would have objected to like 5 seconds ago. So it's easier to come up with examples like, punishing people for using the wrong pronouns or identifying structures of that kind. I would say it's the system
a lot of
doing
forced
actual
conformity
censorship.
as well.
Let's take that example. Bethany, you're talking about...
Okay, so his definition was more of an example and not a definition. And later, I'm going to give you a definition, and I'm pretty sure we all grew up with this similar definition of being woke, and how, once again, the right loves to just use these words and just treat them however they fit. But his example is, coming to a realization of new informities such as pronouns. This wasn't a big issue maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago for sure, 20 years ago when I was young. No, nothing about pronouns. The only last thing I really dealt with pronouns was in school. You know what I'm saying? So I do understand how when our country and people and our minds are evolving, because we're not talking and acting the same way we did 100 years ago. We evolved. Our language evolves. It's not going to be the same thing, when it comes to people's identity and just culturally, that changes. Just like you could have said the N-word, 100 years ago. It's not really is really shunned upon now when you use the N-word with the hard R. It's the same thing. You just got to kind of get comfortable, understand it, and if you don't want to understand, say what you want. But there is consequences to things that you say. Just like on YouTube, I was calling a lot of people idiots on YouTube, and I got in trouble for it. It's my freedom of speech, but I still have to suffer the consequences. So what he's saying is just an example of society in 2023, people learning to understand cultural differences and being able to evolve around it. You don't have to do it, but it's going to be consequences. So let me go ahead and go to the full screen here. So a definition of being woke. Like I say, words can change, words definitions can change, but it usually changes along with the culture. It's a difference between evolving words in definitions compared to someone purposely hijacking a word and using it irresponsibly. To me, that's two totally different things. But the woke definition is the meaning of woke is aware of and actively attentive to important societal facts and issues, especially issues of racial and social justice. That is simple. I don't understand how it gets complicated. Why is that complicated? Why is that being such a burden to people to understand? That's what woke means. And if you really want to kind of nitpick, the young lady who was being interviewed, she's expressing a form of wokeness because now she's aware, she's alert, she's conscious of what's going on around her, and she feels she needs to speak up on it. She's being woke herself while attacking woke people. No, what she wants to attack is the repercussions of people's actions. And that's not okay. Just like I say, I just call a few people idiots and I get in trouble on my YouTube. You know what I'm saying? I am choosing to call people names. I have to suffer the consequences. If you want to purposely dead name people or whatever it is, you got to suffer the consequences. It's a difference between like, oh shoot, I didn't know that kind of what was going on. You know what? My bad. I didn't mean it. I thought your name was still Steve. My bad. But then to purposely do it because you're just trying to prove some point, you got to suffer the consequences. It's that simple. And this always goes back to Mr. Christopher F. Rufo. Ever since he put out this tweet, anytime that the right wants to hijack a word and use it for whatever agenda, whatever purpose they want to, it always reminds me of this guy's tweet. He said, "We have successfully frozen their brand, critical race theory." This is when critical race theory, I mean, it's still a big thing, but you know, this is when it was like, you know, being woke. You know what I'm saying? He said, "Into the public conversation and are steadily driving up negative perceptions. We will eventually turn it toxic as we put all of the various cultural insanities under that brand category." He said the quiet part out loud. He wasn't supposed to tell people that. He's telling people we're going to take what critical race theory means, flip it up, turn it around, upside down, and put every single toxic norm that you can think of under this banner. If you disagree with me, critical race theory. If your kids feel like, you know, black people need reparations, critical race theory. If your cereal is nasty and it's out the box and it doesn't taste how you imagined it, critical race theory. They put every negative stereotype culturally under that banner. Same thing with being woke. They're taking every negative, even if it doesn't make sense. It doesn't even have to make sense. Being woke. If you don't like the KKK having their rallies, you're too woke. If you think black people don't deserve to be beaten by the police, you're too woke. If you think jobs, you know, large corporations, the top 500 corporations need to at least be paying a livable wage, you're too woke. It doesn't even have to make sense. Just throw it under there. Republican voters, they're not idiots, but they're special. They're special-minded people. They will believe anything a Republican will say, and they will go for it. Not some of them are you know, intellectually incapable to understand, but it feels like most of them, the majority, just go along with it because it's fun, it's cute. As long as you can attack the other side with calling them names and calling them this and this, they're winning in their books. But the sad reality is that we're all fighting the same fight. So it is what it is. So if you disagree with me, go ahead, let me know in the conversations. Be polite, because I'm working on being polite, okay? Let's have that conversation.
Thank you for listening, and don't forget to join the conversation by subscribing. Make sure to tune in next time, and like always, power to you, power to me, power to the people, power to the pod.